if there's a failure in the entire process of merger acquisition, it starts and stems from a cultural misalignment. HR, I think, is the mother of the house. And this example I normally use in some of my trainings. Till your mother is there in the house, you take her for granted. Your food is on time, you come back, your clothes are all in place, the house is clean. But when the mother is not there for a week, you actually realize how difficult it is. So HR is probably that catalyst that works behind the scene to glue that wonderful fabric at work.
What happens to the recruiting strategy? You're inviting people from outside. How does that really pan out in your 4-5 transactions that you've been part of in the past? Because they don't know the internal workings. They might know even just one brand.
See, what happens is, and what I've seen, the recruitment volumes may increase, one, it may decrease, two, or it may also shift. So people need to be very, very clear what is the objective of the merger. Now, if you have fever and you take a medicine of a stomach upset, it's a medicine. Probably it will cause some ease, but it will not solve your problem. So it is very, very important that we understand and align the strategies based on the exact reason of merger.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back again for yet another episode of Hyreo Rise series of podcast. Well, today we're going to have something very different, something that we have never done in our podcast before. We are going to talk about HR transformation in the context of mergers and acquisitions. We've been hearing a lot about that of late in the market, and there are signs that more are going to follow in the coming quarter. So it might be interesting to take a HR view on that. And I've got a very, very interesting panelist on our conversation today. A pleasure to welcome Abhishek Chatterjee, Director HR at Company 3, a very interesting company as well. Thank you so much, Abhishek, for joining us, and would love to have you introduce yourself for the team here.
Thank you so much, Arun, and thank you to all the viewers. Hi, I'm Abhishek. I work for a company called Company 3. I head the HR for India. As Arun said, that it's a very interesting company. We are into the Hollywood-based post-production of films. All the movies and all the films, all the ads that we see, it's basically produced, and after it's being shot, it's being produced in India. Not very many people may be aware that the film which we go and we flock the theaters are actually being made in India. So, but that's the fact. It is probably one more step towards Atmanirbhar Bharat, which we say without any other connotations. But yes, that's what India is doing in that stage of film production. I come with about 2 decades of experience across industries, into IT, into hospitality, and finally I'm here now with post-productions and media.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Abhishek, for finding time today and talking about this very, very interesting topic of HR transformation and AI enabling that in a merger and acquisition space. Now, we've all gone through and heard this whole M&A in a very different lens, so to speak, right? It's always seen as a financial transaction, as a strategy piece. Very rarely we talk about it, at least outside the organization, right? When we talk about M&A, we never talk about it as a people function. But when we really go into the depth of it, we understand that it's a fundamental shift in the way HR people processes are really working. And glad that we have somebody like you talking about that subject today. Now, to get started, right? When 2 companies really merge and become a new entity, right? There are a lot of challenges hiring teams face, workforce management teams face. There is cultural differences as you can obviously think of, because there are 2 different entities that are coming in. How does this affect this whole nuances of cultural differences, etc., affect the new merged organization that we are thinking about? Abhishek, let's start from there.
Well, first of all, yes, merger and acquisition has been, I would say, my so-called first love when it comes to work, because this is something which I learned on the job, and as I'm sure all of us, we will agree that this is something which is not taught or which cannot be learned in the B schools. So you would have to actually do it, live it, day after day, and then you do it. Um, Also, I think it is very important to appreciate the role of HR. And that is why I think you said that we normally look at a merger acquisition process or an exercise mostly as a strategy exercise or a finance exercise. It may be, and when what kind of merger it happens. But we, at times, which I've seen also in my past, that we forget the human angle, which is probably the core of any M&A exercise. So HR, I think, is the mother of the house. And this example I normally use in some of my trainings. Till your mother is there in the house, you take her for granted. Your food is on time, you come back, your clothes are all in place, the house is clean. But when the mother is not there for a week, you actually realize how difficult it is. So HR is probably that catalyst that works behind the scene to glue that wonderful fabric at work without coming in the front. So that's HR, and that's why it is so important to include HR in the process of a merger acquisition, and not only for the execution part of it. Now, as you asked, when two companies merge, there are challenges in terms of workforce, culture. Mostly what I have seen and observed, if there's a failure in the entire process of merger acquisition, it starts and stems from a cultural misalignment. And in the last, I think, 4 or 5 of the mergers that I've done over the last 10 years, fortunately, those were addressed. Now, when does a cultural alignment fall off? When you de-align it or you delink HR from the decision making right at the start, and the CXO or the core panel start keeping this as an exercise of, okay, this is a financial exercise or a strategy exercise for expansion. And then as a subset of it, you call in HR. So that's probably the mistake which happens even in the largest of the M&As. Now, cultural fitment, the role alignment, the business as usual status must be upheld at any point of time to avoid disruption. That should be, and that is the essence when you do a merger. Now, when two companies merge, their core values, their leadership styles, their workplace, the workforce norms may differ, and they will differ. So we must accept that. So one might have a very structure-based hierarchy kind of an organization, while the other might promote agility, innovation, very flat. So these mismatches would be confusing, and they confuse the hiring team, which makes it unclear which attributes to prioritize when. Should we go for somebody from that kind of a structure, or should we go for agility and things like that? Employees may also struggle, when to understand that the new culture is affecting their ability to align and perform. So that's one challenge you face. Existing employees, which happens when one comes from the one company to the other one being acquired, they feel alienated and disconnected if the post-merger culture conflict is always there. Top performers, which we see because of fear, top performers voluntarily they leave. Only because of fear, if the communication channel is blocked in some way, which in turn causes the churn and loss of institutional knowledge and smooth integration. So in most of the mergers, there would be clause that at least at the top level team will not leave. So then the acquisition, the company would entice them with some incentives, retention bonus and ESOPs and so on and so forth. So see the job description, interview, the way you interview, the onboarding process may also reflect conflicting expectations. So these are there. Slower cultural integration, if it happens, which means slower synergies. So that we all need to understand, which in the process of closing the deal, a lot of senior leaders, they forget. Hiring and aligning talent post-merger is very, very essential in achieving this synergy, which involves your innovation, your growth, your savings of cost. And also the cultural mismatch can delay and prevent this kind of synergies which happens, like people would struggle to work together effectively to adapt to the norms and so on and so forth. Now, there are definitely ways how you mitigate the risk. You do a cultural due diligence. When HR is doing the paper due diligence and we do the policy due diligence, when we do the alignment of policies, grades, compensation, we should definitely do a cultural due diligence, which I don't think a lot of companies they do in India. Unless you the company is that open-minded, they normally take it for granted that we will manage. So that's probably one of the big mistakes which they do. Hiring of practices, leadership behaviors, those kind of alignments would have to be done. I think these are the kind of challenges any HR leader would face, and if more so if the HR leader comes into the scene after the decisions are made. So I think these are the challenges.
That's a very comprehensive list of things. And I was particularly interested when you said, HR leaders are not coming in the earlier phase when you're planning it and not taking it as a reactive process to this. Now, one interesting thing that I noticed as part of that could potentially break is, organizations are growing. And of course, there's some period where there is a little bit of overlap, but companies grow, and that means recruiting happens. People come from outside. There's a whole shift happening because of this whole merger. There are two brands associated. What happens to the recruiting strategy? You're inviting people from outside. How does that really pan out in your 4-5 transactions that you've been part of in the past? Because they don't know the internal workings. They might know even just one brand.
Absolutely. See, what happens is, and what I've seen, the recruitment volumes may increase, one, it may decrease, two, or it may also shift. Now, the recruitment volume depends on the nature, which I was talking at the start. It depends on the nature of the merger or the acquisition that we're doing. Is it a merger of equals? Or is it an acquisition for growth? Or is it an acquisition to bring about efficiency or cutting of cost or managing cost? So people need to be very, very clear what is the objective of the merger. Now, if you have fever and you take a medicine of a stomach upset, it's a medicine. Probably it will cause some ease, but it will not solve your problem. So it is very, very important that we understand and align the strategies based on the exact reason of merger. Now, there will be roles. I'll tell you when it increases, when the volume would increase, when the merger is because of expansions. Okay, I do not have a certain skill set and I don't have a time to hire and train people. So I acquire a small company which is maybe very strong in AI. I acquire that company. With that, I get their IP in terms of knowledge and I also get the trained people. So that is when the business expansion is the main key. Your volumes will actually increase. The combined entity is scaling to the newer markets, newer geography. Now, I want to expand to the US. And I don't have an office, but I do have an entity whom I would like to acquire in US. By doing that, I get the business, I get the client, and I also get the talent. So that is when your volume for recruitment would increase. When would it decrease? It's very, very easy. Role redundancy, and unfortunately, that mostly happens in the support functions. I mean, you will not need 2 HR heads. You will not need 2 CFOs. So those support functions gets impacted the first because it is generally considered that we are the cost centers, which probably you are not. And IT, though it's considered a cost center, but if the IT is not there, and if it's a good IT team who is not there, it actually at the end affects your business. Similarly, HR, if you just take off the recruitment team, do you think that the business will be able to do well in a consulting environment? The answer is no. So those are the cases where your volume would decrease. When it shifts, talent needs to be reassessed. Some departments may grow while others may shrink. That is the time the business is to reorient the focus. Is it a technological acquisition? Then you need to focus on engineers and then product managers. That is the phase when your recruitment volume or the numbers would shift. It also comes about the cultural fit. Again, it helps. It's an entwined, very silent thread which will always flow through any merger and acquisitions. Merger acquisitions fail, as I said, when there is a cultural clash, not a financial or an operational clash which is there. Now, existing employees who are already is in a thing of flux, and at the same time, you're infusing new talent. So it's like there is already fire. You are kind of adding more dry wood into that fire. It's very obvious that sooner than later, that dry wood also will catch fire. So what kind of strategies you bring? You actually have a tighter alignment to your new values, not the old ones. The recruiters first, because they are supposed to be the first point of sales for the company. So the recruiters needs to understand and reflect on the evolving culture, on being on uh, the the brand new the company or the entity, which may still be in a flux. The behavioral interviewing. Now, I've seen in many companies, not only in my past companies, the interviewing techniques are very, very, I would say, old-fashioned. You have set of questions, then you ask. But in such an environment, if you start doing the behavioral event interviewing, where it is like a newspaper, a guy who is going to probe. You probe, and then you take the thread, and then you go on the way the new age companies are doing, and focus more on soft skills, adaptability, change management. I think that can help. uh, Involvement of the integration leaders, may not be HR, maybe the CEOs or the CACS who is there, or the finance head. Involve them into this entire uh, designing of the recruitment strategy. We normally think, okay, I am the head of HR, or I am the head of talent acquisition, I know best, but which may be a fallacy. We would need to include those people, because they have taken a certain decisions which I may not be aware of. So we should take a leaf out of them, and help them. And it's a completely what should I say? It's a very cohesive team which should form. We should take the inputs from them, and then in turn, the employer branding updates. The company must then re-articulate the new employee value proposition, which reflects the merged entity, to attract the new kind of client, to take the best of both the worlds. Uh, as I said right at the start, the change management for the recruiters should be first, before we go and do the change management for the employees at large. So a successful post-merger recruitment strategy would be something which has a balanced strategy growth with cultural sensitivity, ensuring the right kind of people are hired for both the company which is becoming, and what it needs to achieve. So keeping those both in mind, and again, as I said, why the merger happens, that is the most important thing, and get the right kind of people.
Right. I think since you covered that very beautifully in terms of expansion, reduction, shift, and having that recruiting teams to be that front end in terms of that change management, and they being aware of it, because I think a lot of this EVP articulation which happens through recruiters is going to be crucial if you're especially trying to expand, if you're trying to bring in certain kinds of talent, like you said, engineering talent, for example, or finance talent, for example, which is required for the next scale up, or for the reason why we're actually trying to do this, or a geography split, or a geography increase, which is a critical factor. So when you do all of these different pieces, right, and if you're looking at tools, and especially AI, in doing some of these things, my specific question of AI, especially, and I'm not talking about recruiting tools here, I'm specifically talking about, understanding skill gaps, or aligning existing talent to what you might need for the future. Let's say
See,
you're
yeah.
retaining, you're adding, but you still need to know what's there, what's that skill metrics there, and does AI help there?
The answer is yes. AI will definitely help, but what currently the HR leaders, or in fact, not only the HR leaders, the across the industries at large, people are having that apprehension that AI is going to replace me. See, let's be very clear. AI will not replace us. AI would be a co-worker for us, be it HR, be it finance, because at the end of the day, most of our human resource, you will need that human angle. If you had seen the movie where the plane crashes, it's based on the real life incident in the US, Captain Sullenberger, right? When the plane crashed, and there is a line, and it was actually said, if you're trying to find out human error, let's make it human. I like that line so much. AI is definitely going to help, and AI is the way forward. Let's not deviate from that. AI will definitely play a very, very critical role in helping HR teams assess the skill gaps, align the talent pool during the mergers acquisition, because they will do a lot of things faster, And they would actually take away the mundane work, data crunching and so on and so forth, so that HR can focus on more human sort of work. So AI will bring about speed, agility, objectivity, scalability on very highly complex, sensitive, and often, processes which are time constrained. So AI would be there. Now, how AI can help? Uh, Automate the skill mapping. AI tools can analyze your JDs. Now, if you ask me, if I have to go through 100 JDs, I will have to probably get 10 recruiters to do that. And if I have a timeline, then God help me. So AI can definitely help in skill mapping, sieving through mountains of data and come up with suggestions. Now, people mistake saying that, okay, this is the decision. AI will not give you a decision. AI will give you suggestions. Like when we do psychometric analysis, the footnote says it is not a decisive tool or a report. It will help you take your decision. So the decision I would have to take. AI is only going to facilitate, give me the finer print. So that's one. NLP, natural language processing, which is at the core of AI. They understand and matches the similar kind of skills. And when they describe it differently across companies like client engagement versus customer success, so that will also help. So NLP will play a very, very important role, right? Benchmarking, which is nothing to do with recruitment. Any kind of benchmarking, be it skill, be it compensation. The tools compare your internal skills against the market standards. Now, obviously, you would have to engage with certain tools in the market. You have to feed the data to the engine, but these tools would compare the market with the internal skills, or the strategy goes to identify the gaps, be it your senior leadership capability, be it your digital skills, the acumen. So I think these three things AI can definitely help. Apart from, there are many other things to automate the mundane tasks. And the benefit of using such tools is that it would help HR to create the skill inventories. If you want, create heat maps of strengths, deficiencies, gaps, essential for an integration planning, because we are all believing what the new company is telling us, because we have not worked with them. So we are believing when they say, okay, I have got so much of high potentials, the top potentials, or the performance rating. And you and I, we both know performance rating are not the true measures of what the person's capability is, right? So talent clustering, duplication, role finding and automation, role to role mapping, scenario modeling, attrition prediction, very, very important in a merger acquisition thing. If a tool can predict attritions being plugged into your email engines, the kind of tonality of the person writes, and then you judge, okay, Abhishek was writing a mail for the last 6 months in this tone. For the last 2 months, his tone has changed. He's becoming so aggressive. So that would flag. So these kind of things, AI can definitely help.
Great. Now, we're talking about possibilities of technology, right? I also want to ask you another possibility, especially when you have a transaction of this sort. There are mistakes that are going to be made. You could have any department making a mistake, but in the context of what we are saying, Abhishek, what are typically the HR leaders' mistakes when it comes to, let's say, an M&A? What do people overestimate, underestimate, really don't give enough attention to? With your experience in doing multiple transactions, what are some of those classic mistakes, and what do you want to do to make sure that you avoid them?
See, first of all, I would admit in my first process about 10 years back, I did this. And I learned, because I was pointed out by my CEO, I think, Abhishek, we could have done this better. First of all, you need to understand that you have to acknowledge that there will be scope of mistakes. And as long as you learn it, I think I am okay with it. Some key mistakes the HR team, HR folks would do when they are rushing transformation because the deadline is there. And for the promoter or the company who is being acquired, there's a huge amount of financial obligation which is there. So it's a rush for everybody. Your CFO would rush, your CTO would rush, your CHRO would rush. But especially in workforce planning and hiring, I think there is a scope, and I did those kind of mistakes. One would be, you ignore the cultural due diligence, as I said right at the start. You do all the due diligences in the world, but you miss the cultural due diligence, and that only you find out maybe in the second and the third month. Promises which was made is no longer valid. I mean, that's probably the worst thing. In one of my past experiences, it has happened that promises were made, and then when people moved, and I was in the middle, and I know that promises were made, and when they moved to the new entity, they said, no, this was I'm sorry, this was not discussed. It is probably the worst experience an HR leader can have. And I know when those promises were made, and in the new entity is like, I can't do anything about it. It's being lied upon. So those kind of things, it needs to happen. Overlooking the internal talent before hiring externally. Um, in lot of companies, they believe in hiring a talent from outside by paying an X% delta. But I would still not promote and give that lower than that X% to my internal, because we think if I do this, it sets a precedence. But smart business leaders or smart HR leaders who are aligned to business would do that cost benefit analysis. If I'm doing something for my internal team, there is obviously a way to manage the communication, the kind of narrative which you do. But if I do that small delta for my internal team, there is a faith which gets instilled, and the institutional knowledge or the tribal knowledge doesn't go out. And then you start encouraging the growth from within. In the contrary, you are spending more and you're getting somebody from outside. So then the trust factor breaks. So that's one. Rushing workforce planning without business clarity. It has happened, and now you see a lot of companies, they hire, and then you have 20,000 people being laid off, 15,000 people being laid off. So it's very, very important. I would rather say use informed caution, understand the clarity, understand the business, what you are seeing in the next 6 months, next 2 years, next 5 years, and then you do your workforce planning. And do not underestimate the change fatigue. We are doing it. If you're going to push, the mistake what happens is pushing aggressive transformation, like reorgs, take rollouts. Suddenly you come and say, I want to do a new HRMS, I want to do this automation and that automation, policy overhaul, without pacing for the change management, and that impacts employee burnout, productivity will drop, resistance to further HR initiative. If that happened, the last one, the HR leader has lost it. People have lost faith in HR, and then it's a kill. Deploying one-size-fits-all strategy. That is something, a huge miss. People would think, okay, I would do this. And then you design some plan, some strategy, thinking it will fit everybody, but it doesn't fit. So I think these are the 4-5 things. Ignoring data when you are doing analytics. HR, I think AI can play a huge role there. Whenever you do the data-based making of calls, taking calls, those would be mostly correct. I would not say 100%. And also, when you are doing the strategies, involve the employees, hear their voice. Neglecting an employee's voice during transformation, I think that's a blunder, if I may use the word. Yeah.
Right. Fantastic, Abhishek. I know this is a much longer conversation, but
Yeah.
We are always tied to our time, Abhishek. But I just want to take your closing comments on one last quick question. If you could give me a quick response to that. And because this last point that you the topic that you covered around those mistakes, that's important. So if you were to create an HR playbook, essentially for talent management and talent function in an M&A space, right? What would be the core chapters be of that book? Just, very quickly, top of your head.
Okay. The pre-deal talent due diligence, which again, close to my heart, cultural due diligence needs to be there. Pre-deal. It is not post. HR integration strategy, which has to be an adoption of everybody. It is not only HR. Communication and change management. Do's and don'ts, so on and so forth. Workforce planning and redeployment. Not more so planning, but redeployment, yes, definitely. Retention strategies and engagement. Culture and value integration, which would stem from the first chapter. Talent acquisition, probably post-merger, which we spoke. HR systems and automations, where again AI would come in. But this will probably be the 7th or 8th chapter, that kind of thing, which can also involve metrics, analytics. And the last would be post-integration optimization. So when you do a merger, it's your first is your when the thing happens, then there is a stabilization phase which happens for about a year. after the merger has happened. So then the stabilization phase, and then you go for either you're going to go up the curve and you optimize. So I think the last chapter would be important, keeping in mind the overall health of the company which you have acquired. So I think this would be the last chapter.
Lovely. I think those 8 to 10 chapters are good enough to actually write a book, and you should seriously consider doing something like that, Abhishek, in the near future. But
I don't know.
yeah,
Maybe when I maybe 58, when I have got nothing to do, I would probably sit, and I hope that I get few more chances. But yes, these would help for people who are walking into it. I think at least the talking points, when you say that these you should do and these are the mistakes, and it is not that something I am giving a lecture on. Some mistakes which I have done and from which I have learned. I think a lot of people would get synced to it, the kind of mistakes which we do and we learn from them.
absolutely, Abhishek. Thank you so much. This has been a lovely conversation, purely on the merit of on the subject that we covered and how much justice we could do in the last 20-25 minutes or so. Would have loved to speak more. I had like a half a dozen more questions that I would have loved to cover on this, but as you know, we have to do justice to the time that we allot for this as well. But maybe on another similar conversation in the future, something specific that we will pick up. Thank you once again, Abhishek. I'm sure the audience would have loved your insights on how this has been done in the past with respect to M&A and how we could do it better in the future. Thank you so much once again, Abhishek.
Thank you so much, Arun, and I wish you and your team a wonderful, happy Diwali, which is going to come up, and I hope that you do super jobs.
Thank you so much, Abhishek. Same to you. Thank you so much.